that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 372nd edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell.
That's right, guys. 372.
Yeah, there you go. This is George Harvey. I'm going to change my name to Bob. That's an acronym for bald, overweight, and I forget what the third one was.
That's probably the third one.
There was a third one, but I forgot. And the amazing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
By the way, everybody, Tom actually is amazing. I'm not kidding. Okay, Energy Week is based on a blog that I have called geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. We're going to keep you apprised of the dates of the articles that we're talking about, the dates they appeared at the blog, not the dates they were published. And we're starting on May 21st, 2020. May 21st was a Thursday. Today is, we're starting on May 14th. Today is May 21st.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Tom, did I confuse you?
Yeah, I thought I lost a week.
Probably so did some of our viewers. Anyway, you can go to the blog. If you're watching this at the BCTV website or at YouTube or wherever, there is probably going to be another place that you could go posted that you can get a link to, or you can even get a file that shows you the program that you could follow along with if you want, and it shows the pictures that are online, so people are going to be able to watch this looking at the pictures if they don't even have a TV screen in front of them, but can get the sound as they would in a what do they call them, Tom? Podcast. Okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, right.
There you go. So we're starting on May 14th. We have a picture of a rendering from a planned project in Maryland.
That's what it says.
An item from E&E News. And
Looks like a little fishing boat there, huh?
A little fishing boat.
Yeah. Well, what it says here is it's a FERC order that could bar offshore wind from the U.S. power market. This is crazy.
Well, FERC has been working on this for months.
Huh?
And FERC has been working on this for months, and we've been reporting on it.
Yeah.
A controversial order from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission issued late last year could block offshore wind developers from the nation's largest capacity market, analysts say. Now, states with ambitious clean energy goals say they are grappling with how to respond. And there's a bunch of things that they could do to respond to this. And Tom, you probably have something to say about that.
Well, this is crazy. I mean, they're trying to say we don't want you to use renewables.
Yeah, that's exactly. What they're saying is anybody who subsidizes renewables, those renewables are not allowed to put out bids that are lower than bids from competing fossil fuel plants.
That's it in a nutshell. And my goodness, I mean, it's hard to wrap my head around that. That's craziness. Yeah. Well, I got a couple of notes here. States are trying to meet targets for clean power, while FERC is trying to support traditional fossil fuels. And FERC's move here raises prices for state-subsidized renewable generation. So Vermont, for example, can't give you a discount if you put in solar or something like that. And it's going to undermine efforts to slash carbon dioxide. Now my cat's getting in the way. He wants to get in on the show.
Yeah, I should tell everybody we're doing this broadcast from home, which is why we're not on the screen. I am in my home and Tom is in his, and we're doing this by telephone, and anybody who's got a cat knows what that means.
Well, anyhow, it's undermining efforts to slash carbon dioxide emissions by extending a lifeline to fossil fuel generators that would otherwise have retired. And in this particular case, offshore wind will bear the brunt of the impact.
Yeah, and it's not just carbon emissions; it's particulates, and they are killing people. I mean,
well, this is all hoax.
Yeah, there you go.
And it's Trumpism, really. What we're looking at here is Trumpism.
Yes, and it's one of those things where basically what's happening is the democracy that we have is in trouble because it is. Well, okay, I shouldn't be propounding on politics, but you
can't get away from it though.
Hard when you're talking about energy. It's hard. There's going to be a lot of money lost by people who own fossil fuels infrastructure. They don't want that.
That's the bottom line, really.
Huh?
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line, and they don't want to lose that money, so they want to force us to live with their products. And they are especially upset if the states are subsidizing attempts to keep us alive because, in Vermont we lose about 300 people every year just to the emissions from the transportation sector.
And we have clean air, relatively.
We're in a place here where basically politicians are saying, given a choice of offering more jobs or saving more lives, we want to offer more jobs. It's okay if we kill people as long as somebody's making money on it. I don't buy that.
Well, unfortunately, there's some people that do.
Well, I'll tell you something. Based on their actions in office, I think Richard Nixon would not have bought it. And I think that Gerald Ford would not have bought it, and I think that Ronald Reagan would not have bought it, and I think
you're right.
George Bush would not have bought it. And these are the people who the people are saying are their predecessors, who they look back to, who are their models. And I'll tell you something: Theodore Roosevelt would not have bought this. It just would not have happened. So. Anyway, we got to move on, I think, unless you've got more, Tom.
No, we got a picture here of a very unusual thing. It's called a pump jack.
Also known as a nodding donkey.
A nodding donkey, exactly. And the show wouldn't be the same if we didn't show a pump jack. And we're going to do it again before the show's out.
Yeah. Okay, this is an item from The Guardian.
Long-troubled U.S. oil firms are capitalizing on coronavirus assistance.
Weren't we just?
Why am I not surprised?
We were just talking about the fossil fuels industry, having an effect on our politics, weren't we?
Yeah, weren't we?
Many American oil and gas companies are in financial trouble and were before the coronavirus economic crisis. And now they're asking for taxpayer assistance to cushion their fall.
They got hands out, baby.
What? Yeah, absolutely. Many independent drillers were mired in debt and got mired in debt chasing the fracking boom.
Well, we've talked about that.
When I was young, 50 years ago, I had a lot of friends who were in the I think the majority of my close friends were either or both in the John Birch Society or the National Rifle Association. These guys admired people who were, they admired Ayn Rand, for crying out loud, who I could never deal with. But I remember them saying, you can't solve a problem by throwing money at it. And that's what is happening in Washington right now. They're throwing money at a problem, and concealed in all that are places where oil and gas companies can get money, and it's not really concealed when you get right down to it.
They got $113 million in taxpayer-backed loans that were meant for small businesses. And the fossil fuel industry, somehow or another, has glommed onto this.
You know what? I just had a thought.
Yeah.
Maybe FERC is going to tell these people that they're going to have to, since they're being subsidized, they have to meet the prices of wind power and solar.
That would be nice.
Yeah, but it probably won't happen.
Well, there's more coming. The Fed also plans to offer bond buybacks to giants such as ExxonMobil and Chevron.
Absolutely. You know,
they're feeling a decrease in oil demand, so they want some more money.
Yeah, and these are companies that have, in some cases, hundreds of billions of dollars in income every year. You know.
Well, they've been subsidized from the beginning.
Oh yes, yes, indeed they have.
And you know, they want the subsidies, but you can't subsidize solar. Can't subsidize wind.
Yeah. Well,
we got a nice picture of a nuclear power plant, by the way, which is one of the most highly subsidized industries in America.
Yeah, this is from S&P Global. What do you got for a title?
Fermi 2 reactor in Michigan sees over 200 workers testing positive for novel coronavirus during outage.
Yeah.
I don't understand this one.
You don't?
200 workers?
Nearly 250 workers at DTE Energy's 1,250 megawatt Fermi 2 nuclear reactor in Newport, Michigan, tested positive for novel coronavirus during the ongoing refueling and maintenance outage, according to a union official. The reason why there were so many people who got sick is because they probably had 1,500 people, maybe more than that, in town from out of town just to do the refueling. That's what happens.
That's what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, and so they have all these people packed into a small area, and you know it's like some people with these things were saying you can't close these plants down. You got to keep them going. We should delay refueling. I'm sorry, you can't delay refueling. And then there's other people who are saying they shouldn't even be refueled because there's you know, so you have two sides of the pro-nuclear, anti-nuclear thing here going on. But 250 people is a large part of the number of people at that plant.
There's about 2,000 people that are working there now, right now.
All right.
They're all over the place.
So this is 12.5%, and that's 12.5% that we know of.
Yeah. Well, they're trying efforts to remediate this, but it's too little too late. You know, now they got mandatory face mask usage and stuff like that, promotions of physical and social distancing. They should have done that in the beginning.
They should have. There's no question about it.
Well, let's move along. This next one is very interesting and very important, I think.
Yeah, and it's got an interesting picture of a solar farm seen from behind. So it looks like a black line across the screen.
It is an interesting picture. I'm glad you told us what it was, because there's no way we'd ever figure that one out.
Well, and I should say we're up to Friday, May 15th, and this is from the Los Angeles Times.
Giant batteries are changing everything for clean energy.
Southern California Edison announced it's buying 770 megawatts of batteries. So one California utility is buying more energy storage than was installed in the entire United States last year. The CEO of SCE's parent company called it just another stepping stone.
Well, batteries are a big part of the short-term plans for energy in America.
Absolutely, and I think long-term plans too. And the
well, yeah, really, they are.
They are, you know, and the thing is, you know, we've talked about this and talked about it, but when you have the old baseload paradigm, you have baseload power plants that just run flat out all the time, that provide enough energy to meet your minimum need. Because if you fall below that, you've got a serious problem of what to do with the extra electricity. Then on top of that, you have load following plants that provide electricity that costs more, and then on top of that, you have peaker plants that cost even more. And it turns out these batteries provide electricity cheaper than the peaking power plants.
Oh, by quite a bit.
And so what they're doing is they're putting them in to cover the peaking power plants, but also the load-following power plants and the baseload plants, because it's just cheaper than...
Well, the batteries are going to become the new baseload.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's what they're going to do. And what that means is our solar and wind power farms and rooftop solar and all the rest of that, what they're going to be doing is covering whatever load happens to be out there, but charging the batteries. And those, this is how we're going to get into a future where
it's a new model.
It's a new model. It's absolutely a new model. And the thing that's beautiful about it is not only does it cost a great deal less than the model we're working on now, but it provides more reliable and better quality electricity.
And it's instantly dispatchable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It means
flip a switch, it's on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a light bulb.
Yeah.
Well, we talked last week about this, and we talked about something that's going to change a lot. They got long-duration batteries now. There's only one company's got it. But a typical battery has enough power to last for about 4 hours. This guy's got a battery that's going to last 150 hours. That's
at full discharge rate.
Yeah.
It's confusing to some people because when you say power lasting only 4 hours, some people think that means that you charge the battery and 4 hours later it's going to have leaked all that power out.
That's just a measuring stick.
It's a measuring stick, yeah. But what it means is that the cost of batteries is just going to keep going down. And this, you've said this so many times. We've got so many people who are working on these things who are coming up with ideas.
Well, battery storage, or any kind of storage for that matter, is very significant now, and people are working on it.
That's right. Okay.
Let's move along here. We got a nice picture coming up
of a glacier, Berry Glacier.
That's the Berry Glacier, and let's try and figure out what it's saying here. Prince William Sound, yes. I'm getting confused between Iceland and Greenland and Alaska. This is in Alaska.
Yes, it is.
And it's the Berry Glacier. That's what this article is about. And scientists warn about the risk of a massive tsunami in the Prince William Sound. And before you read about it, I will mention what the Prince William Sound is. It's a large body of water in southern Alaska, near the Aleutian Peninsula.
Yep.
And it goes right into Fairbanks. Fairbanks is at the end of this. This is a pretty big-sized piece of water.
It is. This is from Anchorage Daily News, and when I saw this, I actually got kind of scared.
Well, it could be a bad thing.
It could be. A landslide in Prince William Sound could trigger a large tsunami in an area sometimes frequented by hundreds of fishermen and recreational boaters. According to scientists and state officials, the slope, and if you look at the picture, the slope on the left side there is getting unstable because the glacier, which is on the right side, is retreating due to climate change. And so, one of the things that's interesting about this is you've got climate change, which is just a tiny little change in temperature, which is raising the temperature of the water so that the ice is melting a little bit faster than it used to melt. So the glacier is slowly retreating, a few dozen feet a year maybe, or a couple hundred feet a year, I don't know, but it retreats. That glacier is supporting the side of the mountain.
It's unstable.
It's unstable, and when they're talking about a tsunami here, they're talking about a tsunami in a very confined piece of water. And
a tsunami in 1964 at an earthquake killed more than 100 people.
Yeah.
So this is nothing to sneeze at.
Well, when these tsunamis happen in confined waters, you can have what's called a mega tsunami. And they had one of those in Alaska that was survived by two people who were in a fishing boat. How they did it, I don't know. But the wave was over 1,000 feet tall.
Well, this landslide is happening as we speak.
Yeah.
It's moving slowly right now.
Yeah.
But earthquakes, heavy rainfall, or rapid snowmelts, or flying permafrost could make this thing slide quickly. It could happen instantly.
And it could put up a wave that would be very, very tall. Not maybe 1,000 feet, but
it could maybe it doesn't have to be 1,000 feet, but it could be a very serious tsunami.
Yeah.
And it could wipe out parts of Anchorage.
Yep. Okay.
And it's scientists are talking about it. They say it's possible that it could happen within a year, and it's likely that it will happen within 20 years.
Right. So they're going to have to start getting serious about keeping people out of the water in that area.
Either that or make it happen and everybody knows it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's something that occurred to me, too. Maybe they can figure out a way to have parts of this go consecutively so that, they have little bitty tsunamis instead of one great big one.
Well, let's figure out, let's say there's got to be some smart people working on it.
There are undoubtedly are smart people working on it.
Well, we got an interesting picture coming up. I wonder what it is. Well, it says it's a coal-fired power plant.
Yeah, how about that? And this, by the way, comes from a publication called Green Matters.
Oh, I got a different one from Boonsey 66.
Oh, the picture is from Boonsey 66.
Yeah, right. Okay, the article came from Green Matters. I got that. U.S. expected to generate more electricity from renewables than coal this year. We've talked about this before in respect to other countries.
Yes, and there was an article that I put up today, so it's not going to be in this week's show. It'll be in next week's show about performance in the first quarter in the UK. And I've been thinking about this. Renewable energy produces a little more electricity. In the UK, they had their offshore wind farms averaged a capacity factor of 60%, which is high. But the thing is, nuclear averaged 59% in the month of February. So what does that mean? It means the nuclear industry is losing a lot of money because you don't make money at 59%. And natural gas was at 37%, and coal was at 17%. What does that mean? It means the end of coal.
Well, okay. Coal, we've talked about this. Coal is a zombie already.
Okay, let me read this. Despite Trump administration efforts to bail out the fossil fuel industry during the coronavirus pandemic, the U.S. is projected to produce more electricity from renewable sources than coal this year. This is for the whole year. For the first time ever, the New York Times reported this.
Well, there's a takeaway here. It comes right from the article. Coal, this is a quote, coal is facing a triple whammy. As renewables grow, demand shrinks, and natural gas stays cheap.
Well, what do you do, Tom? If you've got a couple $1 trillion to throw around, you throw around some at coal because the coal industry has got friends in it. The renewables industry doesn't.
Well, there's truth in that statement.
Much as I hate to say it.
Well, the COVID-19 lockdowns have had a significant effect on the country's electricity over the past few months.
Yeah.
In addition, the U.S. electric power sector is expected to add 20 gigawatts. You've heard me say it, a gigawatt is a bigawatt.
That's right.
Of new wind capacity and 13 gigawatts of utility-scale solar capacity this year alone. This is scheduled. This is coming.
It's coming, that's right. And I should mention, every time you say bigawatt, it reminds me of a joke I was told by an Italian once.
And I hope we're gonna hear the joke.
He said, "Do you know the definition of a bigamist? A bigamist is a large Italian fog."
A bigamist, yes.
I had to tell you that was told to me by an Italian because I would not tell a joke about Italians to diminish them because, Italy is a country that has done amazing things over the course of history. So,
for sure.
What can I say? Okay.
Well, let's talk about this one. This one's kind of weird. Saudi oil rush threatens to disrupt stabilizing U.S. market. This
is something to talk about too.
This is weird.
We have a picture of a tanker here. I felt like looking it up, but I didn't have time. It's called the Hellespont Trooper. This is from Yahoo Canada Finance. Over 30 tankers.
And that tanker is empty.
That tanker is empty, and that tanker is also big.
It's very big.
Not a small ship.
It's very big.
Yeah. Over 30 tankers laden with Saudi oil are set to arrive at the Gulf Coast and the West Coast during May and June, according to ship tracking data compiled by Bloomberg. The oil they bring threatens to disrupt a positive supply development, which is a decline in U.S. crude stockpiles.
This is weird. There's super tankers. They're carrying more than 50 million barrels of Saudi crude, which is a lingering effect of a price war between Riyadh and Russia back in March.
Yeah.
And what are they doing? They're running all this oil to America.
Why are they doing that? I think, and this is just a conspiracy theory on my part, and I really don't like conspiracy theories, but I think they are trying to destroy the American oil industry, and they are
doing a good job of it.
Yeah, they're saying, hey, oil prices went negative in the United States because they didn't have any place to store anything. So what are we going to do? We're going to give them more oil.
Well, put it in perspective, the volume of this oil arriving in May and June of this year is equal to nearly a third of all the Saudi crude delivered in the U.S. last year.
What can you say? I mean,
like I say, this is weird. From our standpoint, it's weird. The Saudis have it. I know they think they know what they're doing.
Well, I think they have a pretty good idea what they're doing. But the only thing that I can say is this is not an accident. This is something.
No. Somebody sat down and figured this one out.
I think so. And they're saying, okay, you want to undermine the oil industry in the United States? Do it, because that means we don't have competition from fracking in the United States. And honestly, I think that they see the attempt by Washington to push the fracking industry and export products as a war on them. Saudi Arabia and Russia have an oil war, and they both shoot at the U.S.
That's kind of neat, isn't it?
It's a very weird. We live in strange times. Okay, we're up to Saturday, May 16th. Unless you've got more about that.
No, we got a great picture here.
This is a great picture.
This is Monument Valley, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Yeah. Well, I look at this like I always look at Arizona highways, for example, and I look at the thing and I just say these pictures are so beautiful, and I'm so glad I'm not there. I would get such terrible sunburn in a place like this.
Well, Monument Valley it's a juncture of 4 states.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely a beautiful place. I have a screensaver of Monument Valley, so I look at it a lot.
I'm not surprised. I have a screensaver of the Lee River, which is extremely beautiful, and it's in China, and I look at that a lot, and I've been doing it for years. Okay, this particular article is from Earth Island Journal.
The Bureau of Land Management is planning a vast overhaul of the Greater Chaco Land Management Plan, and the Greater Chaco is that part of the 4 corners of U.S. that includes the Monument Valley.
Which is what you're looking at.
Exactly.
And they're planning this during the pandemic. The U.S. Bureau of Land Management is holding final public comment sessions on oil and gas drilling in the Greater Chaco region online through May 28th, effectively excluding local Navajo and Pueblo Indians because they don't have internet access. So,
just like most of Vermont.
This is the Bureau of Land Management. Well, I think they've got less than people in Vermont do.
They do, but I mean, there's no. These are places where there's no phone service or anything,
Yeah, exactly, and these people they're supposed to be given an ability to say, to voice their concerns, and the Bureau of Land Management is just excluding them by saying, well, we've got a pandemic going on, so we'll do it online.
Yeah. Well, you can't see it in that picture, and I wasn't aware of it, as to how much oil and gas they're extracting from this beautiful place.
Yeah.
There's 22,000 active oil and gas wells in that Four Corners region. That's a lot.
I wonder what would happen if you replaced those on a one-by-one basis with wind turbines.
Oh, no.
You'd have more electricity than you know what to do with.
Well, you would, but I wouldn't want to put wind turbines all over there.
I wouldn't either.
And I'm in favor of wind turbines.
But not there.
But not there.
Yeah.
I mean, the place is a national monument, literally.
Yes, absolutely.
Literally and figuratively, in any way you want it. It's a very special place.
And my own point of view, which I'm very certain an echo of what you just said, I wouldn't want to have either oil wells or wind turbines in this particular location.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
It's interesting because most of this area is within the region belonging to the Navajo Nation.
Yeah, and so the United States does what it always does to the American Indians, which is to
exploit them.
Their rights. By the way, I have a friend who is an American Indian, and I asked him how he felt about being called an Indian, and he said, "Oh, I don't mind that at all. You know, everybody knows that American Indians are not Indians.
Yeah.
So you know, it's like it's a name.
It's a name. Most Native Americans accept that.
Yeah, and I'm a Native American. I was born in Kansas.
Okay.
And
it's the truth. That's the truth.
If somebody made some kind of name that put him in the same boat as the Hopi or the Navajo, or as people who lived in Washington State or Alaska or whatever, it wouldn't be any more accurate than Indian or Native American. There isn't any really good word for these people because they're distinct, separate groups, each with their own cultural identity. So,
in most of these indigenous native languages, they refer to themselves as the people.
The people, that's right. That's what Inuit means.
Yeah.
The people. So.
Now we got a picture coming up of an unusual-looking guy.
Yeah, he is. This is from Clean Technica.
Keep your eye on this guy. I think he's going somewhere.
Well, yeah, I know people who are talking about running him for president, and if
Biden?
Yeah, Joe Biden. Here I am zoning out on Joe Biden's name. If Joe Biden were willing to take a man as a running mate, I would think that Mario Cuomo would be close to the top of the list. Not Mario, Andrew Cuomo.
Andrew, I wish it were Mario. I liked Mario.
Well, I don't dislike Andrew. I think that he's doing a good job in a lot of ways.
He seems to be.
Yeah, so we have an article from Clean Technica.
Governor Cuomo rejects the Williams pipeline.
Yeah, and this is a good article, I think, because it kind of explains something. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has rejected the Williams pipeline, which would have carried natural gas that had been fracked in Pennsylvania to parts of New York City. This pipeline would also have trapped New York into several decades of dependence on fracked gas.
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. And if you really want to go just a step farther, it means that people would be putting up houses with or buying kitchen stoves to cook on or whatever that have that are newly built, designed for natural gas, and then all of a sudden the gas line stops pumping gas, and what do? Well, they're
tenant punt guys.
Yeah, it's like this is where stranded assets can become very, very real when you're dependent on fracked gas, or you're dependent on coal or oil or whatever. These are dependencies that.
Well, the word they use is trapped.
Trapped. That's right.
Well, it's interesting. This pipeline's only 37 miles long.
Yeah.
And it basically connects Pennsylvania to New York City.
Yeah. Well.
And the gas is there. It's in the junction of Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and they're trying to bring it into New York City because New York City's a big market.
Of course. Let's get everything to a big market. This is an interesting article because of the idea of decades of dependence.
Well, that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Basically. Well, let's move along here. It's Sunday, May 17th.
Yep.
And we got an interesting picture. This is a very interesting picture of a Dutch surge barrier.
Yeah.
And look at it. It looks like these things open and close depending upon what the tides are doing.
Yes, and storms and things like that. I think that's exactly what they do. And the Dutch have got a lot of expertise on this because most of their country is under sea level.
And what it looks like they do is when there's a big surge coming, they close the dam.
Yep. And what they're going to do when the oceans rise, I don't know.
Keep that closed most of the time.
Well, at some point, even this is going to be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And
well, unfortunately, I think you're right.
The taller the wall gets, the faster the cost increases.
Well, from the article, let's read what it says here.
Okay, good idea. This is from the Maritime Executive.
Climate options: seawalls, flooding, or emissions cuts.
Yeah, climate change, it's fair to say, is complicated, and it's big. One of the main challenges of responding effectively is simply getting your head around the scale of the problem. A study subsidized by the journal Nature Communications clarifies the system through cost analysis.
Well, the study, it looks at the costs of protecting coastal communities from climate change. And given the costs of flooded coastal cities, scientists suggest that it would save money in the long run to build improved sea defenses around the coastline. And that's what they're talking about here.
Well, that's going to be expensive.
It is. We'll talk again about it in this show.
Yeah.
We got another picture coming up, and guess what?
What?
Pump jack.
Pump jacks! Oh, my gosh. Imagine having pump jacks on this show.
Imagine that, huh?
Imagine that. This is an article from Clean Technica.
And it's our friend Bill McKibben.
Yes.
As big oil declines, Bill McKibben says, so will its political power. Well, you know, I think he's right.
I think he's right. In a recent editorial, Bill McKibben declared, quote, "Big oil is not so big anymore," end quote. At least 90 fossil fuel companies are part of the Federal Reserve coronavirus bond buyback program.
We just mentioned.
We did. But the key point, McKibben reminds us, is as the industry flags, so will its political power.
That's accurate.
Yeah, so what's happening here is they're in trouble because of their own, I think, bad business practices, and the virus comes along. So let's throw money at the problem, and that means that there's lots of money around, and nobody can keep track of $2.2 trillion, and it's grown to be way past that. And so they're kind of standing there, as you said, with their hands out, and that'll keep them going for long enough to get some of that money into their own pockets. That's
what it's about.
Yeah, and then what happens when we get out of this and the money is not being thrown at them? They're going to be in deeper trouble than they were in.
Well, from the article it says the oil and gas industry is oversupplying the market, pummeled by low prices, and sitting in last place on the stock market. And Bloomberg Business Week calls Exxon a humbled and mediocre company.
Well, I think humbled...
Things are changing, guys.
Yeah, humbled, yes, and mediocre is more important. When Bloomberg calls a company mediocre, they're not mincing words.
I don't think so. We got an interesting image coming up here.
We do.
Sloppy Joe's Bar. Looks like a fun place.
It does. The thing that I find interesting about this particular picture is...
Yeah, it's flooded.
It's flooded. The water doesn't have big waves or anything, so this is not happening in a storm. You know, the trees all look like they're just kind of hanging out.
Well, you can see the Budweiser truck there.
Yeah, but this is Key West. This is not because some stream overflowed its bank.
No, that's the water. That's the ocean.
That's the ocean, and the ocean happens to be high. And why is the ocean high? Well, it's sea level rise, guys.
Yep. Well, that's it. That's exactly what it says. NASA is explaining sea level rise, and yes, it's real.
Yeah. This is from Electrek. NASA scientist writer Alan Buis published a blog post which is called Can't See Sea Level Rise? You're Looking in the Wrong Place. That's the end of the title. We lose 2.5 meters of beach. And 2.5 meters, what is that, about 8.5 feet, Tom?
About 8 feet, yep. Yeah, about 8.5.
for every inch the sea level rises. So what are our options? You know, we just looked at this with those surge barriers. Either we spend a lot of money to combat it with things like higher seawalls, or we abandon ship and move.
And that's happening. It's happening already.
Absolutely, it is. And you know, it reminds me of a thing about the. I'm thinking that it's the Fukushima Daiichi Daini Fukushima
That's enough.
Daini nuclear reactor. It's nuclear plant. It's the plant that did not melt down of the two Fukushima plants.
Okay.
And they had a problem, which was, you know, they had this seawall, and the seawall was too low, as they could see by the fact that, you know, the Fukushima Daiichi had the seawall topped, and so they decided they were going to build the seawall taller, and they projected putting some amount of money, and I don't remember what it was, but it was billions of dollars, into building a higher seawall in order to meet the problem that maybe they were going to have another tsunami one day. And then somebody came along and said, wait a minute, this new seawall that you've got is not tall enough.
Wow.
You know, it's like the ocean, this is not ocean level rise, but the point that I'm making is the initial seawall was many millions of dollars, I'm sure. But because they were doubling the height or tripling the height, they were putting billions and billions of dollars into it. And the reason is, of course, if you're going to build a seawall, as you build it up, you have to build it out. So it's not going to increase in price according to the height. It's going to increase in price according to the square of the height.
The volume.
Yeah. What are we going to do when the ocean level is rising and it gets to a point where we can't build those seawalls anymore, because that's going to happen. So that all has to be taken into account in the whole thing too.
Well, in this particular case, this is Key West.
Yeah.
Monroe County in the Keys has admitted that they can't save whole neighborhoods because it's cost prohibitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's true all along the coast of the Gulf, and it's true all along.
They got a solution.
What's that?
They suggest that the residents get boats.
I think that might be a good solution.
And Indonesia is moving its capital, Jakarta. And there's 10 million people in Jakarta.
Yeah.
And it's due to sea level rise. Interesting video about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, Joe Biden has created a climate task force, and he's named Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and John Kerry as co-chairs. And she knows what she's doing.
I have a lot of respect for her. You know, I have always been rather conservative, but I've also had respect for the other side. And
but she's a smart lady. She's going somewhere. She's only 30, I think, now. She's young.
She's young. And
she's got a ways to go.
She has a ways to go.
And like I said, she's very smart, and she's very well informed, and she's activist.
She's passionate. Okay, and I want to say one more thing about this flooding.
Yeah.
One thing that it reminds me of is Roy Rogers.
Roy Rogers?
When Roy Rogers was a little boy, his family was rather poor, but it was on the way up, and his father decided to put the family on a houseboat.
We're talking about the Lone Ranger here?
Yeah. No, not the Lone Ranger. This was Roy Rogers, who was married to Dale Evans.
Yeah.
Yeah, who was not the Lone Ranger, but he was a cowboy.
Yeah, right. I was thinking William Boyd.
And he got them on a houseboat.
Uh-huh.
And then they decided that they were going to buy a piece of property and they were going to build a house on it. And then they had a big flood. And they took the houseboat to the property, and when the flood went away, they were living on their property.
That's neat.
That's funny. Okay, we're up to Monday.
Work out, don't they?
Huh?
Sometimes things work out, don't they?
Yeah, sometimes. We're up to Monday, the 18th of May, and we have an article from Hellenic Shipping News Worldwide.
And a lovely picture of a fracking operation.
Yeah, isn't that lovely?
Well, U.S. oil and gas rig count plunges to a record low for the second week.
The second week in a row. And that's a big drop. The U.S. rig count, an early indicator of future output, fell by 35 to a record low of 339 in the week to May 15th. Data from energy services firm Baker Hughes Company shows. The data goes back to 1940, and the previous record low of 374 was last week. This thing lost 10% in 1 week from a record low.
That's exactly what it says. Global fuel demand is expected to drop roughly 10% in 2020, prompting companies to make drastic cuts in spending, lay off thousands of workers, and close production to offset the glut.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we move on?
Yeah, I think we can.
We have an item from WTSP and a slide of
flooding. A picture of a Jeep running through some water.
In Hurricane Harvey. What do you have for title?
6 years in a row, a named storm forms early in the Atlantic. Dude, you got to explain what that means, but that's significant.
Yes, for the 6th year in a row, a tropical cyclone was named before the official start of the Atlantic hurricane season. Reportedly, there's even a debate going on in the National Hurricane Center in Miami over moving the hurricane season opening to some date in May.
Well, this year, Tropical Storm Arthur was named on May 16th, and the hurricane season officially begins on June 1st.
There you go. And the hurricane season is dependent on, what happens in nature, and it was started on the 1st of June because most of the hurricanes came after that. And now,
changing.
Every year in 6 years in a row, they've had a hurricane before that. So there you go. The weather.
From the article, and we've talked about this, one of the main drivers of tropical cyclone development, and a cyclone is like a hurricane. It's a circular storm with a low pressure in the middle.
Right.
And one of the main drivers is warm water temperatures, and climate change has made that commonplace.
Yes.
And as the article says, warm water is the fuel for tropical systems.
Yes. And it's worse now than it has been in the past, so they're expecting, very likely, there could be a bad hurricane season this year.
That's what they're suspecting.
So we have an item here from Clean Technica showing with a picture of a Tesla showroom in Tyson Center.
Tyson Center is Washington, D.C., basically. Tyson Corner.
Yeah.
And this is a very interesting article about Tesla because they seem to be the only company that's doing well.
Yeah.
Only auto company. U.S. auto sales are down 496,000 in the first quarter. I'm going to say that again. I'm going to round it off. 500,000 automobiles down.
After falling in 2019 as a whole, the U.S. auto industry has been slammed by the coronavirus in the first quarter of 2020. With few exceptions, sales of car brands are off badly from last year. One notable exception to the trend is Tesla, whose sales increased by 17% from the first quarter of 2019. And part of this is because the battery-powered vehicles are not suffering the way internal combustion vehicles are, and part of it is because Tesla has showrooms that are in places like malls, and
they're doing something interesting there.
They are, and VW has said that it's going to copy that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So we're up to Tuesday, May 19th.
I was just going to say that I have any. Well, I'll say it really quickly. U.S. auto industry was getting slaughtered in the first quarter of 2020.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you can see the effects of this: bankruptcies, brands are leaving the U.S., major mergers, worries about job security in the future. But that's not happening with Tesla. Everybody's happy there.
Well, yeah. Although Tesla has been making ventilators instead of cars in their plants.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of that going on, and it has to happen.
Yes, it does. Okay, as I said, we're up to Tuesday, May 19th, and we have an item from CNN.
Nice picture of a hurricane.
Yeah, this is Hurricane Irma.
Is that Irma?
That's what it says.
Okay. Hurricanes, typhoons, and cyclones, which, by the way, are all the same thing,
yes.
are becoming stronger.
Yeah. According to a new NASA study, it has become increasingly evident that cyclonic storms are getting stronger and deadlier with global warming. And this is according to a study by researchers at the University of Wisconsin in Madison and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Now, you know, what you were just saying a couple of minutes ago was it is the warm water that makes these storms strong, and the water is getting warmer, and it's getting warmer because of climate change. And, you know, let's stop denying this and try dealing with it. We should not be paying attention to objectivism. We should be objective.
Well, from the article, the probability of storms reaching major hurricane status, which is winds in excess of 110 miles an hour, has been increasing by about 8% per decade, based on 40-year study.
Yeah.
And this one I just heard on the radio yesterday, Super Cyclone Amphan in India has reached sustainable winds of 165 miles per hour on Monday, and it's still going. It was going as of yesterday.
It hit Calcutta.
I can believe it. Yep, it's a super cyclone. It's a hurricane.
It's a hurricane, I guess. That increase that you were talking about of 8% per year per decade over 4 decades means that we're having these big hurricanes at an increased probability of 36%. So this is significant.
Very much so.
Yeah. Okay, our next picture is an artist's impression of a 14-megawatt wind turbine, and this comes from Renews.
Now that blows my mind. Only a year ago, 5 megawatts was considered a big one.
Yeah, I think it's.
And then
I would want
GE came out with an 8. Somebody else came out with a 10, and GE came out with a 12.
Yep.
And now they got Siemens with a 14 megawatts.
That's right. Got a title for this?
Siemens Gamesa unveils a 14-megawatt offshore Titan, and this is a Titan. This is big.
This is big. I got to tell you, I think this is a silly picture. This is artwork. This isn't real.
No, it's nice picture.
It's not a bad picture, all told. You know, when you consider composition, color, and things like that. But those waves are not behaving the way normal waves behave.
Uh-huh.
I think, you know, this looks like it's at a beach or something. At the bottom, there's rocks in this picture.
Yeah, it kind of looks like it, doesn't it? Yep.
Those are not waves near a beach. Those are waves way out at sea.
Yep.
Okay.
Which usually you don't see.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and most of the time there's sort of waves, but, you know, they don't look like that.
Yeah. Siemens Gamesa has unveiled a new 14-megawatt offshore turbine. It's equipped with a 222-meter rotor.
That's 700 feet.
That's 2 football fields end to end, including the end zones and a little bit left over. That offers a 25% increase in annual energy production compared to its 11-megawatt predecessor, which was already gigantic. Each unit will be able to supply the annual power needs for about 18,000 European households. So,
well, right now they've built a prototype, but they're talking about this being commercially available in 2024.
It's, you know, we're getting there. Okay, should we go on?
I think so.
We have
a nice little picture of a stream. Could be the Whetstone Brook.
Yeah, it is in the Appalachians, but I think it's probably in the southern Appalachians. I'm not sure. Cynthia Shahan is the author of this article, and I think she lives in Florida. I'm not sure. This is from Clean Technica.
The Nature Conservancy to unlock solar potential on retired Appalachian coal mine land. This is interesting.
Love it, don't you?
Yeah.
With its 65 years of work protecting the environment through conservation, the Nature Conservancy is making its way deeper into coal country. The organization wants to help develop solar power on the up to 13,000 acres of cleared coal mine lands.
Well, we've seen some pictures of some of these cleared coal mine lands that they just abandoned, and they look horrible.
They're absolutely frightening.
Well, an interesting takeaway here, the Conservancy has acquired a diverse 250,000-acre Cumberland forests in the traditional coal counties of Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee.
Yeah.
And they've got a goal to conserve the Appalachian forests from Alabama to Canada, and they're on their way.
Yep. Okay, Tom, we're up to Wednesday, May 20th.
Yeah, it's the last one this week, isn't it?
It's the last day, but we've got 3 articles in about 3 minutes. So,
let's talk fast.
Yeah, let's talk real fast. This is a picture of snow algae on Anchorage Island in Antarctica. This is not near Anchorage, Alaska.
No, it isn't. It's on the northern end of Antarctica.
This is an article from The Guardian. What do you have for title? Climate
change is turning parts of Antarctica green. And we've actually sort of touched on this before.
We have indeed. Scientists have mapped what they call the beginning of a new ecosystem on the Antarctic Peninsula as microscopic algae bloom across the surface of the melting snow. When the algae tint the surface green, they potentially create a source of nutrition for other species. So they're actually talking about an entirely new environmental system coming into...
New ecosystem.
Yep,
absolutely. Well, let's move along here.
Our next slide is a wind farm, and it's this...
Is that what that is?
It's an offshore... I would have called people out clamming, but this is a wind farm. And this is an article from CNBC.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Coronavirus crisis to hit renewable energy installations this year, but the IEA praises the sector's resilience.
This year, renewable energy installations are set to fall due to the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, the International Energy Agency said. The agency's renewable market update projects the first decline in growth rate in 20 years. But as you said within the title, they're saying this sector has good resilience. So
well, supply chains have been disrupted. Some factories have had to close.
Yeah.
But
that's the big
EIA is noting that 2021 is forecast to see renewables bounce back to 2019 levels.
Yes.
What they mean by resilience.
Yes.
Well, let's take a look at this picture. Now, we've seen this picture before.
Have we?
Well, not this picture, but this installation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it looks familiar.
Oh, okay.
Very much so.
Okay. We should go on. This is our last item here.
Yeah, well, this picture is not of what they're talking about. This is an existing...
yes, it is. It's an existing wind farm.
And they're talking about a massive 1,000-megawatt baseload wind, solar, and hydrogen plant.
Oh, you're talking about the next picture, a solar array.
Yeah.
New economy. This is important. Okay, read that again, Tom.
Massive, 1,000 megawatts. That's a gigawatt, baby.
Yep.
Baseload wind, solar, and hydrogen plant pitched for New South Wales.
Infinite Blue Energy proposed a $3.5 billion Australian dollar, or $2.3 billion US dollar, concept called Project NEO, N-E-O, all capitalized, which would see combining up to 1,000 megawatts of wind, solar, and hydrogen fuel cell generation capacity to deliver continuous power around the clock in New South Wales. And this is important because it says the time has arrived. We can combine wind, solar, and storage, in this case hydrogen, to produce a complete kind of off-the-shelf replacement for baseload power.
Well, from the article, by converting the solar and wind energy into green hydrogen, it is possible to provide electricity via its fuel cell technology when there is no wind or sun. In other words, they're storing it.
Yeah.
The company estimates that the project would require 235 wind turbines and 5 square miles of solar generation.
Yep, and it is doing this at a cost which is probably half the cost or less of nuclear power. So we have a final slide, which is our goodbye, that says, have a fantastically untroubled week.
I hope we do.
I hope we do, too. And thank you very much, Tom, and we hope that everybody comes back next time.
Well, all right, let's hope so.
Okay, bye-bye.
Adios.